Hello, welcome back to the Pitt Resource Connection, and I'm Mary Smith. We have Karen Caputo here, who is with the Division of Deaf and Hard of Hearing for the state. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Mary.
Now, that's got a real long name, and I just said the last portion of it. Let's have the full name of where you work.
Yes, I work for the North Carolina Division of Services for the Deaf and the Hard of Hearing. We are a state agency, and we are under the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, and you've been there a long time. I think it's an organization.
Yes, myself, I have been there almost 20 years. Our agency has been around longer than that, of course. But we're, compared to some other agencies, we're a fairly new agency, and still a lot of people don't know that we exist.
And that's a shame, because there's a lot of people out there that have difficulty hearing or can't hear at all and need your services.
Oh yes, there are quite a few. There are an astronomical number of individuals that do have hearing loss.
So tell us, is this a statewide program, or do you just cover a certain region of the state?
This is a statewide program. We have 7 regional centers across the state that serve all 100 counties. So those 7 regional centers are divided up to serve a certain number of counties. I work out of the Wilson office, and so our Wilson office serves the 24 northeastern counties of the state, from Goldsboro, Wayne County, all the way up to the Virginia border, all the way over to the coast, so including Hyde County, Ocracoke. But if other counties that we don't serve, we can put you in contact with the regional center that does serve your county.
Okay, so then tell us what services you do offer.
Well, we offer advocacy. If individuals are not getting appropriate services because of their hearing loss, we can go in and talk with the agency or business on how they should work with that customer or their client, talk with them about what services are available and how they should be using assistive listening devices or using sign language interpreters if the individual is deaf. So we advocate. We also do a lot of consultation. People not sure how to go about asking for services, or maybe there's issues in the household, communication issues, and we can go in and talk with them about how to improve the situation there in the house, things that they can do, small things sometimes to improve communication. We have an equipment distribution service. That's probably our most popular service. Individuals can apply for hearing aids or telephones. Also alerting devices that people can apply for. Sometimes you can go to people's houses and you knock and knock and knock and bang on the door and they never know you're there, or you call their house and they never answer. So there are alerting devices that are also available through our equipment distribution service.
Now, these things like you're mentioning, hearing aids and equipment, phones, that sort of thing, are those free for this individual, or is there a fee associated with it?
If the individual meets the income criteria, then they are eligible to get those at no charge to them. The service is actually funded through a surcharge on our phone bills. Most all of us who have phone bills, whether they're cell phones or home phones, we pay a surcharge of, I think it's 14 cents a month now. It just went to 14 cents a month, and those funds are used to buy the hearing aids, telephones, alerting devices, also weather radios.
Oh, that's important there.
Yes, it is.
Especially in the East here.
Yes, especially in the East. The weather radio is not based on income, so anybody with a hearing loss can apply for a weather radio. The other equipment is based on income, and the income limit is actually not very low. It's 250% of the poverty level. So, because the income limits have gone up a couple times, it's about $28,995 a year, I believe.
52 cents.
Something like that. But yes, but actually they're very generous. And so a lot of people that can't apply for services, think, I don't get Medicaid, I've never gotten services before, are eligible for this service.
Well, that's very, very important because I know we get calls or questions through Pit Resource Connection on, a person needing hearing aids, and just never thought of even considering that this is something that you all do. And I'm really glad to hear that because
Yes.
there are people that do need them and can't afford to go out and buy them, or they're having trouble with what they have and they can't get it paid for. And so, so how do they go by applying for these kind of services or these things that you have?
Well, let me mention first of all too that the hearing aids are provided for telephone use because it's a part of our equipment distribution service.
Okay.
And the purpose of that whole service is to help people hear better on the phone.
Okay.
So if they want to apply for either any of those devices, they call our office and we can set them up with an information session. They would actually meet with one of our staff persons and we'll just do the application. They do have to have their hearing checked, obviously, because for hearing aids you do have to have hearing tests. And so we have a list of hearing aid providers who participate in our service, and they will go have their hearing checked and a form's completed by those hearing aid providers, whoever they were to choose.
So even though they may not be, directly eligible for some of these services, you are there as an information and educational purposes as well. So you can help them understand what they're eligible for, what they may not be eligible for, and how they can obtain what they need. And
Exactly. And thank you for bringing that up. That's a very good point. We do provide information on hearing loss and hearing aids. If people are not eligible for our service, we can point them to other possible resources. We have there's a North Carolina Consumer's Guide on hearing aids that's been developed, and this has a checklist. So if someone's not eligible for our service, but they are going to be going to purchase hearing aids, and they want to know what kinds of questions to ask before they go, this is a great tool that they can actually get through our agency, and we'll be glad to get one in people's hands.
The funny story that I always remember, my father had started as he aged, lost hearing. He didn't lose all of it, but it reduced greatly, and so he was fitted for temporary hearing aids to see how he would like them. And he determined that after hearing all the things he didn't want to hear, like the motor on the refrigerator and stuff that we kind of put out of our mind because we hear it every day, we don't pay any attention. When he had those put in there, he says, no, I think I like not hearing everything anymore. So it's an individual thing and how badly and severe the hearing loss is, I would think. But that was always so funny to me that once he got fitted, he said, no, I don't want these.
and it's an adjustment. When people get hearing aids, people have ideas that hearing aids are just going to fix your hearing and I'm going to hear like I used to. People forget what sounds they used to hear, just like you mentioned about your father. So, but hearing aids aren't the same as they used to be. Used to hearing aids were all analog hearing aids, and they just made everything louder. Hearing aids have become more advanced, with the digital technology, and so people that before were not happy with them, sometimes now they're very happy with them.
Okay.
So, and I do hear that quite a bit with individuals that we follow up with that do get hearing aids through our service.
Well, it'd be a change because you get used to tuning them out, sounds out when you're in day-to-day life, and then if you haven't heard it for a long time, and all of a sudden you're hearing every little crick.
Right, and it's adjustments. It's just like with I say bifocals. When you get bifocals, getting used to those. Seeing with those, it's like that with hearing aids. You do have to get accustomed to wearing them.
What is the biggest challenge with hearing loss that you tend to find with individuals that come to you?
Well, first of all, making that decision to do something about your hearing loss and even accepting that you have a hearing loss is a challenge. I see the misunderstanding of hearing loss with family members and with community. Often so much people will think, well, they've got a hearing aid, they should be able to hear perfectly now, they shouldn't have problems. There's just a lack of understanding about hearing loss in general and the frustrations that it brings. Of course, if you've lived in a house or lived with someone who does have hearing loss, you know it can be very challenging. But of course, a lot of people can't afford the hearing aids, and that's a big challenge too. But just this misunderstanding, I think, of hearing loss and the challenges that the person lives with every day and the frustrations that they experience.
What are some of those frustrations? Can you recall any off the hand?
Well, if you've ever been in a situation where you don't hear very well and you've had to ask over, and people do their little roll their eyes and sigh, and so after a while, you know, people get tired of that and the attitudes that people receive. Frustrations of just going to a restaurant and trying to order, being in those situations where all the background noise, you know, and even if you've got a hearing aid, often, you know, hearing aids don't work great in those environments because it's so noisy, and, you know, just the everyday things that people without hearing loss do, going in to pay for something in the store and not being able to understand how much it cost, you know, because you couldn't hear clearly. So.
Well, I can see that, where I have to repeat myself several times to my husband, and he still doesn't hear me. But no, but it is very frustrating. I can see that you're just trying to do day-to-day interactions become more difficult, and I've seen those devices where if the phone rings, a light comes on to let them know that it's ringing. Us with cell phones, you know, if we have them cut off, we never hear them come on, and so it'd be sort of much the same thing. If we don't see it vibrating or the light on the phone showing up, we wouldn't know that it's even there. Right. So I think that's probably a good example of if you could not hear even the phone in the house, it rings. How would you know to answer it? You don't.
Right. And there's equipment available for that, even for cell phones now.
Oh, is there? Yeah.
There is. So the individuals, and that's one of the things that's included with our service. If people do apply for hearing aids, they can also apply for alerting devices.
Okay, and that's a doorbell too, isn't it? There's a way to, if you ring the bell, the light comes on again, or there may be some different things now, but
there are all kinds of different equipment that's available.
So it'd be really important for somebody who has hearing loss to really get in touch with you to find out what kind of things can help them in their day-to-day life, and they can decide whether they want this or that or nothing, but at least they have an opportunity to be educated on what's going on.
Exactly, and we do. If individuals want to apply for telephones, we have a staff person, our telecommunications consultant, and that is her job, is to work with individuals who need telephones or access, whether hearing aids or telephones. But primarily for the telephones, she actually has her suitcase full of phones, and she will come into the individual's home and bring the phones and let them try them in their own home and see what phone's going to work best for them. Because we have a long list of phones that's available, and what works for one person is not going to be the best option for another person.
Right.
So we're able to do that too.
Do people or businesses still use TTYs?
Good question. They are not used as much as they were. There are some individuals that still use TTYs. Deaf individuals, for the most part, are using video phones.
Okay.
And so they're actually signing to one another so they can see each other. So technology's changed. There are still some individuals that use TTYs because they don't have the high-speed internet access that you require. You know, not everybody can afford the high-speed internet access and pay that on a monthly basis.
But they can go through Relay. Isn't that's is it 611?
711.
Right, and they can contact through them. But that's still with a device, though, right?
It's still with the device. So if individuals are deaf, they can apply for TTYs still through the service, and those alerting devices as well.
Okay. So then, Is there anything that you can recommend to families that are with a person that is hard of hearing? Are there recommendations that you would make in terms of making life easier on everybody?
Well, yes. If individuals, can try and remember that a person has hearing loss, first of all, and to speak slower when you're talking to someone, not to talk to them from the other room, which is a habit. We all have communication habits, and that's what I always try to improve or impress on individuals is that, if you talk to someone from another room, they're not going to hear the answer.
Right.
So we hear with our brains, and so if people can get information slower and a little more clearly, it can help with the understanding. And probably 99% of the people I talk with say, I hear, I just don't understand. And so most everybody, can hear that you're saying something, but they don't always understand it. And so if they can see your face when you start talking and know that you're talking to them from the beginning, then they're going to be able to understand more.
They're more attentive, I would think,
right.
too. Right.
We use our eyes to hear. I've heard people say, hold on, I have to get my glasses on so I can hear you better. And, there's a lot of truth to that. So, there's just different, those types of things are important. And in not saying, just forget about it, ask questions back and forth with the family members. What did you hear me say? It's very hurtful for someone to say, just forget about it, or never mind.
Right.
Because after a while, you quit asking and you quit trying to get involved. And yes, in relationships, that's what life is all about, isn't it? It's not about the stuff. It's about the people and the families that we're with that are so important to us.
And the interactions, and that's very important.
And communication,
So
vital.
I think that as a family member, if you have somebody that's deaf, that you need to learn to be patient. You need to realize that they need your assistance to be able to better understand what you're saying and to know that you're talking to them. So.
Right. And we're services for the deaf and the hard of hearing, and so we serve the deaf, but the hard of hearing population is a huge number that we serve also. So, we serve all deaf, deafblind, hard of hearing.
So how do people get in touch with you?
They can call our office.
Okay.
Our toll-free number is 1-800-999-6828.
Okay.
And I'll say that again because if you have a hearing loss, you might need that again. It's 1-800-999-6828.
Okay.
Just give us a call and we'll be glad to talk with you about what services you might have need of.
So you're Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 normally?
Yes, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, except for state holidays, of course.
Of course. Yeah, lucky you.
That's right.
Well, great, Karen. I really appreciate you coming in and talking about this because this is a very important subject, and there are a lot of people, like you say, that do have hearing loss, and it's important to know that there are services that can help them. So
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity.
Great.
Have a good one.
We want to thank you all for watching the Pitt Resource Connection.